Hello and welcome to Cocktail Party Politics.
Yes, we are so happy to be back with you for another week and to break down what's going on inside the Beltway and outside the Beltway.
It has been a week, our dear listeners.
Yeah, so let's get started. So, Congressman Al Green from Texas, he's at it again.
Articles of impeachment against President Trump for bombing without permission of Congress.
Yes. So, a little background. Al Green, if you all remember, he was the congressman from Texas that interrupted President Trump's address to Congress earlier this year, and Speaker Mike Johnson had him removed from the chamber.
That was so satisfying.
Yes, because he was being a nuisance. And he has been calling for years for President Trump to be impeached. I think even before Trump even took office for the second time.
I think Trump just having the temerity to win was enough for him to be impeached worthy, according to Green.
Yes, I think he even 2 days before the inauguration was saying that he was going to introduce articles of impeachment. But anyway,
it's completely absurd.
Yes, anyway, this was a waste of time when the House should actually be conducting business that will benefit the American people. But, it didn't go anywhere. He forced a vote on the floor of the House, didn't go anywhere. 79 members, all Democrat, voted in favor, 344 voted no. And
that means 128 Democrats voted to not impeach,
yes,
which is quite impressive for a bill that you'd often see go on party lines.
Yes, well, yes. But yeah, that was a show, I guess, of bipartisanship, you can say. You do have some people in the Democratic Party that have applauded the action that the president took this past weekend. Senator John Fetterman of my home state of Pennsylvania, he's an enigma to me. I would consider him the Democrat Party's Trump because, he really, he applauded the president and, he breaks with his party a lot, but,
he's absolutely a populist.
Yes, for sure.
I think for good and for ill, I personally cannot condone sweatpants or shorts.
Yes,
on
I did not enjoy
the Senate floor.
Yes, I did not enjoy those few days when Schumer did change the dress code of the Senate, the formal dress code, to try to appease him. But that didn't last, luckily.
What I find completely ridiculous and galling about this, other than the fact that they keep on doing the same song and dance, impeach Trump anytime they dislike what he's doing, which is constantly. Something that really bothers me is the fact that Trump is far from the first president to conduct an aerial strike on a country without an official declaration of war or permission from Congress. Barack Obama sent a lot of drone strikes without permission from Congress, and you don't see him getting impeached.
No, that's because he has a D for Democrat after his name, so it's perfectly fine.
The double standard is just absurd.
Yes.
Everything that Trump does that sends the Democrats into a complete tailspin are things that other Democratic presidents have done or Democratic candidates have called for, and they are fine with it. But because Trump says it with the way that he talks, with his bolder rhetoric, and suddenly it's the end of the world.
Yes. I think this leans into a broader issue in the Democratic Party is that, we're almost, 8 months from the election in November, and they still don't understand why they lost and why they lost so definitively. So they haven't tried to regroup and coalesce around a message that'll maybe help them reach more people in the country. All they've been doing is just, everything they do is anti-Trump, 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 instead of actually trying to level with the American people, relate to them, understand the issues that they care most about. And I think that that's just the issue here. They don't have anything to go on because they don't have a clear message. They don't have a set of policies that they want to, put out there and try to attract the will of the American people behind. This is all they have. So I just don't think they they just can't seem to understand why they lost. And again, they are just suffering chronically from Trump derangement syndrome, and that's what's driving all of this. So instead of the House being able to conduct business that could actually benefit the American public, the House had to spend time entertaining Congressman Al Green and his nonsense yet again.
It's a complete waste of time and the taxpayers' money. And you see this with all of these manufactured outrage cycles. We're seeing this currently with the bombing of Iran, but you also see it with the deportations. Obama could be called deporter in chief.
Yes, yeah.
Because he deported far more than Trump has.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody remembers that because he didn't talk about it openly, and he didn't, actually promise the American people that he would get these things done.
But even if he had talked about it openly because he had a D for Democrat after his name, I doubt the mainstream media and anybody in the Democratic Party would have, batted an eye at it. They would have probably stood there and applauded him for doing that.
And it's completely ridiculous, the rose-colored glasses that many on the left, and even moderates, are looking at the Obama era with, and a lot of the policies that they're complaining about were being done under Obama.
Yes.
And a lot of the problems that carried on through the first Trump term that even infected the Biden administration
Mm-hmm.
are from, the disastrous domestic policy and foreign policy of the Obama administration. I mean, if Obama had taken steps during his term, Trump wouldn't have needed to have dropped those bombs.
Exactly.
And Al Green wouldn't have gotten to have his little stunts.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
we know he would have found something else to complain about because, of course, he would have, but
Yes.
this is all because Obama didn't, prevent Iran from getting nuclear
Exactly.
back in his administration.
And when you think about what happened this past weekend with the U.S. bombing 3 nuclear facilities in
Mhm.
Iran, I mean, this is something that we've been talking about for decades. I mean, the Iranians have been chanting "Death to America" since 1979, but also, not allowing Iran to have a nuclear weapon has been a bipartisan issue.
Mhm.
It's just because a president with an R after his name took definitive action to keep this from happening, there's this outrage. Now, if Kamala Harris had won, or if Joe Biden had stayed in the race and won re-election and done this, I think he would have been being celebrated. I think there would have been a lot of nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize being put out there in his name.
What he's doing is an objective good for the country, for what we're looking for.
Mhm.
He is keeping a very hostile state from becoming nuclear
Exactly.
in a way that didn't cost a single
American life, yes.
or civilian life
Yes.
in Iran. That's another thing to talk about.
Yes.
It's very targeted, it's very safe, and we're not putting Americans at risk in order to do it,
Mhm.
but we're keeping an enemy power
Yeah.
away from having a nuclear weapon, and I do not understand. I mean, I do understand how they're arguing that this is a bad thing. It's just because Trump is doing it.
Mhm.
I mean, this is a man who, if he said he enjoyed a sunny day, they would try to block out the sun.
Exactly.
They hate him. He could give them everything that they wanted, agree with everything they said, and suddenly they'd be the hardest core Republicans known to man.
I mean, he even said in his speech earlier to Congress this year, it didn't matter what he did. He could find a cure for cancer, and they still would never
They would side with
applaud-
cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, they would never applaud him. They would never give him credit where credit is due. And I think, it also was very telling. You saw even some of Trump's harshest critics in the Republican Party come out and, applaud the actions that he did this past weekend. His former Vice President, Mike Pence, was making the rounds and, saying that he was proud of the administration.
And there was
actions.
hardly any love lost between those two
Those
after
two, yes.
2020.
Yes. And even Nikki Haley, who, was the last one to go against Trump for the 2024 nomination, she even came out and applauded the actions of the administration. So again, I think that there's been widespread support for what was done this past weekend. I think also it showed the strength of the U.S. military and our capabilities. I mean, they got in and out in 36 hours,
Mhm.
and they were able to carry out this mission flawlessly from what we understand. And I think also, to President Trump, he kept, pushing the point last week that he was going to make a decision on Iran within 2 weeks. And I think that was his kind of decoy campaign when this was probably in the works the whole time. So we got to give it to,
He knows what he's doing.
Yes, he is the master of just the master showman, the master, of really media campaigns, whatever it is.
He is the heir apparent to Ronald Reagan's great communicator.
Yes.
This is a man who knows how to package ideas, how to frame things, and how to just strategically communicate, because it was good that we were all, looking to the future of what is he going to do, how is he going to decide, when the decisions had already been made. So he was able to very safely, covertly create the strike. It was incredibly brilliant.
Yes. Now, obviously, the situation is still, a little fluid.
Yeah.
Iran and Israel have, I guess, agreed to a ceasefire at the moment. We'll see how that plays out.
We'll see how long.
Yes, we'll see how that plays out in the days and weeks to come. I think President Trump seems to be very adamant that this ceasefire holds. But, only time will tell.
Yeah, we can all just hope that there's some semblance of peace
Yes.
in this region that's been devastated by war for far too long. I think anyone can do it. It's Trump, but I know you're in the same boat as me with that.
Yeah, if peace is strength, as he said. And I think that if he does, broker peace in the Middle East, I think that would be worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize.
If they can get over their biases to give it to him, if Trump could actually enact a lasting or even a semi-stable peace between these countries, while honestly just keeping Iran from going nuclear should be enough.
Yes.
But, what did they give Barack Obama his Nobel Peace Prize for?
Yeah, I still don't know the answer to that. I did try to look up the answer to that online, and I couldn't really find one that really...
I think it was just his existence was
Yes.
deemed so beautiful.
And
The hope and the change that he inspired
yes.
was so beautiful and wonderful that was worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize. Honestly, I think it's less if Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize and more if the Nobel Peace Prize deserves to go to Trump.
Yes.
Yes. Are they worthy of him at this point?
Yes. Well, since we're talking about Barack Obama, I think that's a perfect segue into our next topic. So Michelle Obama.
She has a new podcast.
And she's still at it. So rumors started swirling when Michelle Obama infamously did not show up to Jimmy Carter's funeral at the end of last year.
Many tried to write this off as, oh, she just doesn't want to have to sit next to Trump. This is a protest against Donald Trump. And not at all that there are any issues in her marriage.
Yes, but then again, she didn't show up to the inauguration. And, you can have your personal qualms, but I think it's good for the country to see all our leaders come to this event as we,
As we were reminded an awful lot in 2020, a peaceful transition of power is incredibly important. We know that's true because the Dems said it over and over and over again. But she didn't go, and again, she really, really hates Trump. So maybe it was that. Until she started her podcast.
Yeah, so Michelle Obama has a podcast with her brother that they're talking about relationships. And it seems to me, just my opinion, that every time Michelle Obama is on the air, she uses the opportunity to drag Barack Obama. It is like she has this ball of dead weight behind her that she can't get rid of. He's bringing her down. She likes to tell us about how he's insensitive, he's not a talker, he doesn't keep the same schedule as her.
It's so unkind.
Yes.
I honestly, I don't listen to the whole episode straight through, but any clips I've heard of it, it makes me kind of uncomfortable hearing somebody so publicly drag their spouse like that.
Yes.
It's like being stuck at a really bad dinner party that you cannot wait to get out of.
And not for nothing, we would not know who she is if it wasn't for him.
In her podcast, Michelle Obama has mentioned that she feels that Barack had been dragging her down, holding her back. But the only reason anyone listens to her podcast...
Well, even why she has a podcast in the first place.
She has a podcast in the first place is because she was married. She was the first lady. She also claimed that she was really uncomfortable with her role of first lady, and it's not something that she's actively seeking. Because, the best way for people to leave you alone, as Meghan Markle knows, is to do a big media blitz, to start a podcast, or to release a book.
Yes, in November, just in time for Christmas, Michelle Obama is putting out a book that's going to revisit all her iconic fashion looks.
From her time as First Lady.
Yes, and beyond, but mostly the time as First Lady.
Because this is, what somebody who's really uncomfortable with the attention and spotlight of being First Lady does. They make a book revisiting their fashion and promote it like crazy. As people who started their own podcast, we're not going to go cry about wanting privacy.
Yes, exactly. But, Michelle Obama really, I think, said the most telling thing last week. So she was doing
This is awful.
she was on another podcast, and the host asked her if she ever wished that she had a son. And she said no, because he would have been a mini Barack Obama and she would have felt sorry for him. Paulina, what are your thoughts on that statement? Seems pretty loaded to me.
My feelings would be very hurt if I was Barack right now.
Yes.
I could not imagine saying that about someone you're married to. And what does that say about the traits that she sees in her daughters that are, alike her husband?
Yeah.
What does that say about her husband? Does she feel bad that he has to go through the world as himself? It's truly horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine saying that about somebody you love. Imagine saying about a friend, oh, you hope their child isn't like them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something you say about somebody you even like.
No, and this is the, I would say the biggest of many things she has said about her husband since she started this podcast, and has been now going on other people's podcasts as well and peddling the same points.
I just don't get it.
I don't either. I really don't. Just my opinion. Maybe she and he married the wrong people.
It's very sad if so.
Mm-hmm.
Though, Michelle Obama is not the only member of that family trying to distance herself from the former president. Their daughter, Malia, has dropped the Obama name and is just going by Malia Ann.
Mm-hmm.
The young woman is a filmmaker because apparently being the daughter of a former president opens a lot of doors.
It does.
She was an intern on that HBO show Girls on, I think, Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And all of those things came because
She made a commercial for Nike.
she was a very, very, very smart and talented young woman and had nothing to do with the fact that at the time her father was the president.
Yes.
So now she's dropping his name just to remind people that she got where she got on merit alone.
Yep. Exactly.
It's completely ridiculous. I mean, I think the Nepo baby discourse is really played out and tired. I'm as bored of talking about the nepotism problem in the entertainment industry as I am of the nepotism problem in the entertainment industry.
I would have more respect for all these people if they just admitted it. Being like, yeah, I was born into privilege. I know that I have, yes, maybe they have worked really hard and, got the education and things, but, to also just stand there and admit and say, yeah, I had a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise had I not been born into what I was born into.
I think people I find it so refreshing when people like Allison Williams will admit that, yes, her father being Brian Williams helped her acting career.
For sure.
It introduced her to the right people. The ones who get defensive about it, I just find really frustrating because no one's saying you're not talented. They're just saying it's different. And Malia Obama, maybe she's a great filmmaker. Maybe she's going to, in the next few years, make something that really moves us. We don't know this, but she wouldn't have the opportunities that she has at the age that she has.
Yeah, for
if
sure.
she wasn't an Obama.
Yeah. She made a couple Nike commercials. Maybe she'll do a feature film. Maybe she'll do something, but
who knows?
Anyway, we will be watching, and we will be keeping you all abreast of what is going on.
And we will be commenting.
Yes,
we'll
be
watching
will be
commenting.
and commenting. Yes, you will hear our opinions here on this, because I'm sure this saga is going to continue.
Now, speaking of Nepo babies and political families, do you want to tell the audience about that book you were telling me about?
Yes, I recently finished the book Ask Not by Maureen Callahan, who is a columnist for the Daily Mail and has a great new podcast called The Nerve.
Spectacular podcast. We love it so much.
Yes, we do. And she kind of pulls back the curtain on all the Kennedy women. So she kind of goes into depth about Jackie O, Carolyn Bessette, Ethel Kennedy, and kind of pulls back their experience being members of this political dynasty, if you will. And, it's also timely that I read this book because Ryan Murphy is coming out with yet another miniseries focused on a historical event, a historical figure.
As part of his American blank story,
crime,
marketing,
horror, whatever it is.
He's doing the first American love story to be released on Valentine's Day
2026.
Because very creative marketing. No one's ever done that before.
Yes.
About John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette.
Yes. And having just finished the book Ask Not, I can tell you, from what I read, just my opinion, Carolyn Bessette and JFK Jr.'s relationship was anything but a great love story.
Really?
Yes. I think that, he was the most eligible bachelor in the world for a good chunk of time, and I think, she felt like when she finally landed him and finally got him to marry her, she felt like she had won the ultimate prize. He could have had anyone, and he chose her. Just my opinion. I think that their relationship was marked by, a lot of ups and downs. I think the man that she saw outwardly was not the man that she married. And to be perfectly honest, in my opinion, I think that JFK Jr., he had a death wish in a sense. And I think you look at kind of how he conducted himself throughout his life, he seemed a little bit reckless, and I think that all culminated in that plane crash on that fateful day that not only killed JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, but also killed her older sister Lauren. So when you think about her family, there were 3 daughters in total. Only one of them is still with us today.
It is so heartbreaking.
Yes, and just, even, this idea, to think of JFK Jr. as possibly being reckless and having a death wish. The night of that flight, he was advised not to fly. And he turned off his communication with air traffic control. He didn't file a formal flight plan. And he actually almost crashed into an American Airlines flight that evening that had, I want to say, about 150 passengers and crew members on board. Yes.
Gracious, it's awful. I have some tentative hope for this show. I think that some of these Ryan Murphy projects have been disastrous, campy, melodramatic.
Yes.
Awful, but some of them have been really grounded and really interesting.
Yes.
I thought the Monica Lewinsky one I really liked.
I did. I loved the OJ one.
The OJ one was spectacular.
Iconic.
Those two were, and that's within, but then this is also kind of the same world that did that awful Jeffrey Dahmer series.
Yes, and the Menendez Brothers series.
That offensive take on the Menendez
Yes.
Brothers. Horrifying. So, it's complicated.
Yes.
It's going to be one of the smart, nuanced, interesting takes on a true story, or is it going to be over-dramatized and sensationalized?
As this, love story for the ages, the greatest love story, if you will, of the 20th century, which I hope that they pull back the curtain a little bit and actually show the cracks that were there and have been well documented between JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette.
I also hope it looks better than the initial images have shown.
Yes, so Ryan Murphy is very upset because this show has just started filming in New York City with a planned release date of Valentine's Day 2026. And we saw some stills of the actors who have been cast to play Carolyn and JFK Jr. Now, mind you, Ryan Murphy has said that 1,000 actors each auditioned for these coveted roles.
Now, neither of us are familiar with any of these actors' work,
No.
so we cannot speak to them and their talents. But I have to say, the look of the show, and the hair, the costuming, it all looks a little
H&M.
Halloween costume.
Yeah, H&M, like they shopped at H&M.
I like H&M.
Yeah,
Nothing against H&M, but...
No, but Carolyn Bessette wore Prada. She worked at Calvin Klein.
Were these brands not willing to do a deal with...
Yes, I feel like Ryan Murphy could have easily consulted with these brands to help kind of capture the aesthetic that was Carolyn Bessette.
And, this is a woman who, I think, if people know anything about her, it's her clothes more than, anything about her life or her personality outside of her marriage. Mm-hmm. She's a style icon more than anything.
Yes.
It'll be really interesting to see. I have hope at the very least, just
Yes.
because I like good television, and I'd always rather a show be excellent than terrible.
Yes. I mean, I
But-
saw the stills. I was taken aback a little bit by some of the costumes. It just, I felt like they could have done a little better. We'll see what happens as this series continues to film, and I'm sure Ryan Murphy, as he does, will be teasing us with some behind-the-scenes details and looks. But he was very upset at the initial reaction to this forthcoming project.
I mean, that's just sort of what teasing a new project in the social media age does. People will react. Sometimes it'll be that they had the complete wrong idea, and the final project will vindicate it. That happens quite a bit when people lose their mind over some innocuous detail that turns out to actually work.
Yes.
And sometimes those initial problems that you witness are signs of a deeper rot in the system. And, well, the best way that I think he can counteract people's criticisms of the show is to just make a good show.
Exactly.
If the work is actually enjoyable, then people won't be upset about it, and they'll forget that they were making fun of it for a few weeks, 6 months before it comes out, you know?
Yes. Yes.
But if it's bad, then his freaking out over people's initial reactions will just be a sign of a thin-skinnedness.
Yes. I mean, needless to say, I will be watching. Do you think
I
you'll
will-
watch?
You know I will be watching.
Yes. I mean, I personally find the Kennedy political fan, I find it interesting. I think even after all these years, there's still more to learn, or there always seems to be a new bit of information coming out. So I'll be watching, and when it does come out, we'll be recapping it and talking about it.
Oh, absolutely. It'll be nice to have an exciting, buzzy piece of television to talk about, because I just think so much of what's on offer right now, there hasn't really been a great water cooler show.
Yes.
You and I tried our hardest with the new season of And Just Like That.
It's really hard. It's really... we tried.
We tried. We made it 2 full seasons in.
We did.
But it's not even a fun hate watch anymore.
No, I like to just keep myself captured in the 6 seasons of the original series, and in my mind, that's where it ended.
The show lost me when it completely mocked anything to do with conventional values or small towns or religion in that first episode of the season. I just really couldn't go on beyond there.
Yeah. But
It's so disappointing.
yes. And just like that, we have one more topic we want to get to. You wanted to discuss...
That was a spectacular segue.
Yes, you want to talk about what Senator Elizabeth Warren, a.k.a. Pocahontas, has been up to.
To bring it right back around to Democratic politicians' reactions on Trump's bombing of Iran. Now, Senator Elizabeth Warren and President Donald Trump do not have much love lost between each other. Them.
No, I mean, he has called her Pocahontas since, I think, 2016, so and it's not meant to be a kind.
Those two were never meant to be friends, but
No.
in the grand tradition of Democrats losing their mind over everything the president does, Elizabeth Warren made a speech recently decrying him for putting lives at risk, her words, in striking the Iran nuclear facilities. Do you know where she was?
Yes, the real kicker is where she was and what the podium said.
She was standing behind a podium for Planned Parenthood in front of a background filled with the logo of Planned Parenthood.
It's bright pink, stood out, you couldn't miss it.
Even if you tried.
Yeah.
Now, there's an irony to this, because Planned Parenthood is not putting lives at risk. It is actively responsible for millions of deaths every single year, and deaths of Americans.
Mm-hmm.
While many on the left love to talk about all of the wide array of other services that Planned Parenthood does, the overwhelming majority of its revenue comes from its abortion services.
Mm-hmm.
That means that is a lot of murdered Americans every year. So maybe, I don't know, I think Elizabeth Warren should think a little less about the nebulous lives at risk from a completely bloodless strike that President Trump executed flawlessly, and more about the deaths that her podium was celebrating. Right?
Yes.
Completely absurd. The hypocrisy is so galling.
Or, the deaths that could have easily been avoided the past 4 years had her party and the president not opened our borders and allowed whoever to come into our country.
Yeah. There are a lot of needless deaths from her party's policies. And Elizabeth Warren has one of the most progressive voting records.
Yes.
She is very far to the left for the Senate. She has supported some truly unconscionable policies that allow the needless murder of so many Americans. It's completely absurd. All of the immigration deaths, all of the Planned Parenthood deaths, these are all in her hands to an extent.
Yes.
I just cannot get over the fact that she's criticizing him for putting lives at risk when every day she's putting Americans at risk.
Yeah.
Everything she's standing for is putting Americans at risk.
Yes, 100%. But again, as I said at the beginning of this episode, the Democrats just don't have anything to coalesce around. They don't have a clear message, and I think that
they're floundering right
They really are.
We're seeing this as the left is grasping at straws for a person to be the center of their party, the way that Trump back in 2016 so clearly emerged as the voice of where conservatives were. He really met the moment where it was at and became the center of a really strong movement. The left spent, 8 years propping up a senile man who was a bit of a compromise candidate. Spent a few weeks...
That's being generous when you say just a bit, but...
I'm trying to be polite.
Okay.
And then they spent a few weeks pretending to care about Kamala Harris.
107 days, but
You with your numbers.
Yeah.
So they spent 107 days pretending that they cared about Kamala Harris. But now they realize that there's no real ethos to the left right now. Their belief is whatever Trump says, we think the opposite.
Exactly.
They're being pushed. You have Democrats who love taxes and who hate the free market crying about tariffs. You have... It's all absurd. People who were fine with Obama's mass deportations crying on camera about Trump's deportations. Everything that they're getting upset about, it's not because of what it is, it's about who's doing it. The Democrats were fine with deportations and drone strikes.
Yes.
When Barack Obama did it.
Yes, so long as the person doing it had a D for Democrat after their name.
But the problem is when your entire political ethos is entirely dependent on who's saying it rather than what's being said, when you don't have a figure to coalesce around, they're sort of floundering. That is why you have everything from AOC being pushed further and further to the right, while Gavin Newsom tries to walk a tightrope between hating Trump and talking to Steve Bannon on his podcast.
Yes. But I will say, Gavin Newsom, his response to the fires and the riots, policy aside and politics aside, that man does not know how to lead.
Everything. There have been so many moments in his gubernatorial tenure that ought to be disqualifying. The way he ran that state to the ground, going back to COVID, his oppressive lockdown policies that he flouted.
While he went out to a Michelin star restaurant, mind you.
Well, because he deserves more than his subjects, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm using subjects on purpose.
Oh.
And then the way he completely failed to be prepared for that truly horrific wildfire earlier this year. And then with the riots in LA, just allowing it to happen because scoring a point against Trump is somehow more important than keeping his population safe and promoting any semblance of law and order.
Yeah. Because the guy has no leadership skills. He has no, I think, in my opinion, no really true set of policies. He's just going to go whichever way the pendulum swings that can maybe get him to the Oval Office in 2028.
I'd argue that Gavin Newsom is maybe the platonic ideal of what the current Democrat apparatus is.
Yes.
Soulless, slick, without any actual beliefs or policies, entirely at the sway of the wind, depending on what the Democrats want and what the Republicans don't want.
Yes.
He is just the consummate politician, and I mean that derogatorily.
Mm-hmm.
And it's horrifying to watch time and time again. Just that every Democrat currently in contention is this ethosless being of pure political ambition,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't really have any beliefs that aren't not Trump.
Yes, and the ones they're trying to take a stance on are 80-20 issues where they're on the 20% side while President Trump and the Republicans are on the 80% side.
It's completely the issues that they've chosen to be their hills to die on. There are some policies that Republicans are pushing that maybe aren't as popular, but no, the hills the Democrats are choosing are things like open borders and men and women's sports.
Yes, and protecting illegal criminal migrants instead of protecting hardworking American citizens. I mean, how does that make sense to anybody?
These are the issues that won Trump the presidency. People talk about the price of eggs all you want, but the cost of eggs doesn't matter as much if you're worried about getting murdered on your way to the grocery store.
Yes, and you don't feel safe in your own community. And President Trump has said it himself. He made immigration his number one issue for a reason. Because again, unlike the Democrats who like to sit in their ivory towers, President Trump was talking to everyday Americans and understood what mattered most to them. And as
these are the issues that matter to everyday Americans. These are the things that affect our daily lives that people actually care about.
Yes, 100%.
And it's absurd that the Democrats have decided that, no, these are their winning issues. I mean, I'm all for them losing their minds over these 80-20 issues. Please continue.
Please, because the Republicans will just continue to win elections for years to come, and that's perfectly fine with me.
I think that part of what we're seeing with the Dems right now is that they never actually reflected on why they lost in 2024. Because, yes, the handoff between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris was disastrous. Yes, Kamala Harris ran an atrocious campaign, even had she had won a single primary vote, which she didn't. It was still an atrociously handled campaign, but
I mean, in my opinion, I think even if Biden had stayed in the race, I think he still would have lost. I think maybe I think he still would have lost. I think maybe the loss would have been a little closer, honestly, between him and Trump.
I mean, there are arguments that it could have been even worse. Some saw internal polling that was leaked at around the time of the election to the New York Post, I believe, that some say Trump would have gotten 400.
Amazing. Wow.
Which I played around a little bit on 538, and that means Red Virginia, Red New York,
New Jersey,
Red
too?
New Jersey.
Yeah. I mean, because all those states, New York, I think, swung 13 points in his direction. I think he only lost New Jersey by 5 points.
New Jersey was closer than, as a Jersey girl,
anybody expected.
It had closer than it had any expectation of being. It was blown away. But, I mean, I think you're seeing that in New Jersey. This is a state where one of their congressional representatives went from being a, moderate Democrat to a very, very strong, MAGA Republican,
Yes.
Jeff Van Drew,
Mm-hmm.
rather than the typical, the left me, I'm still mostly a Democrat except on one or two issues. This is somebody who's really predominantly bought in.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing that a lot in these blue states that year after year have been penalized by their representatives and their governors horrible policies that are just hurting them. And you can only hurt your voter base so much before they either move to Tennessee and Florida, or they start to think maybe you shouldn't be representing them.
Yes. And I think President Trump really played into that, especially this past election cycle, and I think that that's why he won so handedly and so decisively.
I mean, the coalition that he's built is unlike anything the Republicans have seen in a long time.
Yes.
And it's, I know we keep going on about this, but it's so remarkable.
Yes, I mean, people from every shade, every stripe, I mean, it didn't matter. He brought people together. And, you know, President Trump is, I think, a unique candidate. He had the ability to do that. He will break bread with anybody. He will talk to anybody. And that's what happens when you listen. Because he would listen to people's concerns. He listened to anybody that wanted to talk to him, and he listened. And that's why he was able to build this broad coalition of all these different people coalesced around this, you know, all these different sides of issues. And again, as I said, you know, in a previous episode, it's not really a conservative Republican issue or a Democrat liberal issue. It's really coalesced around this idea of common sense, prosperity, and people just want to be able to enjoy their wealth and be left alone.
People throw around the word populist in a negative way sometimes, but I mean, this is a man who really is following what the people want and what they're asking for, what will actually make the lives of his constituents better. And people are attacking him for that, but listening to what Americans actually need to live their most fruitful lives. I mean, the Constitution promises us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and I think we've let so long on both sides of the aisle that pursuit of happiness go.
Yeah.
But President Trump is really just pushing these policies that will help us flourish in the best way that we can and just improve people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, I say it all the time. In my opinion, President Trump really is the people's president.
Oh, completely. That is the best way to describe him.
Yes. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time, in my opinion.
Greatest of my lifetime, at the very least.
Yes.
Truly, truly spectacular, and I'm so excited to see what the rest of his term will bring.
Yes. I feel like, I mean, he has been going at warp speed since January 20th. He is the Energizer Bunny, and I love to see it. He is just, I think he's having a good time. I think he's enjoying it, and I think he's just, you know, really happy with the progress he's been able to make in these past 5 months.
It is astonishing, the amount of progress, because I think we're so used to, as a voting base, just seeing politicians talk about all the things that they're going to do, maybe, and you might, if you're lucky, get one of the many, many things you voted for, and that one thing will have so many concessions and so many compromises to get it that by the time you get it, it's not even remotely recognizable for the policies that you were hoping for, and at that point, was it even worth it? But President Trump has enacted almost every campaign promise he made
what he's been
already.
what he's been able to do through executive action has been remarkable, and obviously, you know, the one big beautiful bill that is going to be the core legislative piece of his second term.
Everything that could be done in reconciliation that he promised is being done in that bill. It is. We waxed poetic about it last week, so we will spare you our continued gushing, but
I mean, it's still making its way through the Senate. Senate Majority Leader Thune has said the Senate intends to stay in D.C. until this thing gets passed, and they're hoping for this weekend for that to happen, so we'll see.
We will check back in with you next week, hopefully under the passage of this truly spectacular piece of legislation.
The One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It's
beautiful.
It's truly a great name for a great bill.
It's a fitting name.
Yeah.
Well, that is our show. Thank you so much for joining us here at Cocktail Party Politics.
And we will catch you guys next week.
We're so looking forward to talking to you about everything inside the Beltway and out.
Catch you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.